Hey everybody, it's Grip. Today I'm going to tell the story of the K1 buck. Alright, so where does this all begin? Well, first of all, anybody that spent any time around me knows that I not only do I enjoy hearing a good hunting story, I like telling a good story, and this one is this is a good story. So um, it it goes back. Well, this is going to span 4 hunting seasons. This goes back to the 21-22 season, and I was doing my standard MO of running my trail cameras starting around July. I start running a few cameras. I always have one on my mineral block. Um, I either put a block out on the ground or I put one on a stump, which if you've seen my other videos, you can see how I've talked about putting the trace mineral block on a stump. And it is solely there so that I can get intel. It's there for population survey. They come in the summer and hit it. The does hit it about every day. The young bucks hit it almost every day. And the big boys, they're there once a week, maybe every 10 days or so, but it gives me uh, a good opportunity to take intel on and take inventory on who's still around. And so this buck first showed up in 2021. You can see by the pictures that he's a great deer. I'm pretty sure, and I'm not the greatest um, deer ager out there, but I'm thinking at this point he is either a really, really good 3-year-old, or he is kind of a thin-bodied 4-year-old. I'm going to call him a 3.5. I forgot you got to put in that. You got to put in that half year when you're talking about deer in the fall. But I put him at a 3-year-old in the 2021 season. So I was after him. He was on my hit list, even though he was a 3-year-old. You know, my at this point, I'm looking. If I'm looking at a buck, I'm looking at their antlers, and if I think they're going to score, and they're the biggest buck running around on the property, or one of the biggest, then they're on my list. I've done that before, where I've picked one buck and hunted a deer instead of just hunting deer, which is a whole other level of frustration. But he was on my list, and we had one run in that season. I was down on the ground and I was hunting in this real thick stuff that was watching an old logging road, and he came across the logging road, but up further from where I couldn't get a shot. And I decided to risk it, and I grabbed my grunt tube and I gave him a few grunts, and he came down it turned him and he came down the logging road. But the problem with grunting at a deer when you're down on the ground, they know where you are. And so he came down that road looking right at me. And so he was eyeballing me the entire time. And he got pretty close. I never even got the full draw, but I was just sitting there with my ghillie hood on. And he looked at me, and you could see the wheels turning. And he gave me about 15 seconds worth of, I don't know what that is over there, but it definitely doesn't look like a buck talking to me. So I'm out. He took off. So that was close encounter number one. So the 21-22 season comes to a close, and I pick right back up where I left off. A lot of us that are out there, the season never really ends; it just transitions. So the hunting season went from filling tags to back to collecting inventory. And so, I went shed hunting and did all my normal postseason scouting and just, doing what I do. And uh, get the cameras out in July, and this buck shows up. Now, if you look closely, and I'll put those pictures of this buck K1 in the 21-22. If you look closely at his left antler, he has this little kicker point that kind of points straight forward. And so then in the following year, it looks like that point tries to become its own main beam. And he got a lot of junk. His brow tine, I think, on his left side had 4 points. You can see he really became an attention getter. And I said, okay, I'm focusing my attention on this buck. This year I'm gonna go from hunting deer to hunting a deer, and he was the guy that was on the top of my list. So I stayed off of that property for most of October. The first few weeks of October, I really only went in to pull cards and check my cameras just to see, where he was and try to pin him down. And I got in there in late October, and I hunted a few times. And my one handicap to this whole lifestyle is my career. As I've mentioned on videos before, I'm a high school science teacher, and which pretty much means I'm a weekend warrior. I can't take a week off during the rut. I get 3 personal days a year, and the district will really frown upon taking a sick day to go hunting. So I don't, I'm pretty much just a weekend warrior. So I get in there, I start trying to get in his way, and I pull the cards on would have been the second weekend of November, and somewhere on or about November 12th, something happened. And take a look at these pictures. So as you can see, he got in a scuffle, and he broke that left antler off, and still kept that nice wide right antler. I mean, just a great deer. And when I was scrolling through my pictures on that second weekend in November, and I saw that antler broken off, I said, that's it. I'm not going back on that farm. I don't want to be tempted. On the outside chance he gives me a shot, I don't know if I'm that strong, if I can let him go. So I said, just don't tempt yourself. Just hunt your other properties. Let him have the farm. And my plan, I'm playing chess, not checkers here. My plan was to lull him into a false sense of security. I was going to hunt him without him knowing I was hunting him. And I gave him that farm. I did not go back. I'd let my cameras run for 2-3 weeks, and then I'd pull cards, and I would go in, pull cards, and get out. It was all I was doing. And it really, I think, paid dividends because he was all over that farm. I have hundreds of pictures of him daylighting on that farm. So I gave him the farm, and I said, I'm going to go in the spring. I'm going to go look for his sheds. I would love to find that broken antler that would tell me where the fight occurred. And I really wasn't sure what buck he fought, because he was the biggest whitetail on that farm that I got any pictures of. So then we get to 23, 24. I do the same thing. I start running cameras, and I catch him in velvet. And what what helped me identify him, I was expecting him to have that same funky left antler with all the junk and the points and the extra main beam and all that stuff. And he didn't develop that. But I knew it was him because he, in some point in his fighting, he ripped his left ear. And so anytime I got a good look at that left ear, I could see that tear on the bottom edge. I knew it was him. Um, I had a lot of pictures of him running around in the previous season with his one antler, and you could see that ear. So that was a feature that really let me dial in and know that it was him. And I was a little shocked to see, I don't know what happened that caused that antler to grow that extra main beam and have all the extra forks on the brows and whatnot. I don't know what happened to him to have that happen and then not have it, that antler development in 23, 24. But for whatever reason, that's how he developed. And as you can see, he's a mainframe 11, and he's just a gorgeous, gorgeous buck. And he got my full attention. So now I'm into season 3 of targeting this buck. I get into my same routine. I realized that giving him the farm was a benefit to my favor. I've got him in October, multiple cameras up on his feet, basically just being comfortable on that farm and quite frankly, acting very killable. And I was feeling really, really good about my chances. And I went out on the morning of October 28th, one of my favorite, that Halloween weekend right there around Halloween is one of my favorite times to be in the woods. And I was really feeling good about this hunt. And I went out there that afternoon, and well, let's just cut to me in the field.
Okay, I chickened out. I was headed in. I was going to go in and set up in this poplar that watches this trail that um, I've been getting some good activity on. I'm coming through the middle field back here, and I get about halfway through, and I jump a buck. He was right there at the field edge, and that got me nervous. And then I thought, man, if he's there, up and moving at quarter till 4, then I didn't want to go in. I know the one I'm after, I'm pretty certain, I'm fairly certain that he's bedded over that way, close to where, relatively close to where I want to set up. And it is dead calm and quiet. And I thought for sure he'd hear me setting up if I went in there with no cover noise. So I'm officially dropped back in punt mode. And I'm in an old blind that I put up a couple years ago, two two seasons ago. And I think I might have hunted in here once last year, maybe. So it's pretty well just been sitting here. I don't know. I'm not real confident, but I was scared to death that I'd go in there and I would bump that buck that I'm after. So I backed out, and I'm about 100 yards, maybe 100 yards. I'm definitely further away from where I thought I'd see him. My plan was to catch him on that, what I call the North Trail, and the North Trail is probably, it's a good 75 yards from here, so let's hope that
So if you notice, I said at 4:45, that's when I was cutting across the field. Um, I'm going to go ahead and put in a little video clip. And there he goes. This was right about the time I was talking to that camera. He was up on his feet, and where he is right now in this area I call a saddle. That was probably 50 yards from the tree that I was planning to get in my saddle, where I've got a sticks and a platform waiting for me. And yeah, he would have crossed right in front of me. And so I'm sitting there in the blind, and I catch movement out in front of me. And as I mentioned, it was pretty dead calm. And at first I thought, were those leaves? And then I realized there was virtually no wind and there wouldn't be leaves moving horizontally. And I threw my binoculars up and I saw antlers. And because I have studied his rack so many times on the trail camera pictures, as soon as I saw his antlers coming through the brush in my binoculars, I knew it was him. I put the binoculars down, I hit record, and here's where we are. That is the video clip that I hate, but I can't stop watching. I bet I've watched it 1,000 times. But let's go back and look in slow-mo. You can see I made the cardinal sin. I don't know. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I know better. I've got no excuse. He shook me up. I mean, that's all I can say. So we look at it in slow-mo, and I held middle of the body, and I've been doing this long enough to know that you have a mature deer at 20, 21 yards, alert. You do not hold middle of the body, you hold low. And had I held low, I really believe this would have been a totally different story. But I didn't. So having watched that video clip so many times, and I'll probably put the slow motion back up again, but because I held middle of the body and because he reacted, he dropped. Not only did he drop, but if you look, he is rolling away. You know, he's making a sharp right hand turn, and as he's doing that, when he drops, his chest, his thoracic cavity, as he rolls away, it changes the angle. So instead of that arrow hitting here, as he drops and rolls, it's more of a glancing blow instead of coming straight in underneath the spine. Now his spine and shoulder blade are just about in line, and that arrow comes in, and it totally he totally moved his lungs and his thoracic cavity away from the flight path of that arrow, and that's what saved his life. Um, had I held, had I moved my sight pin that much further lower, I really believe it would have been a different story. Anyone watching, learn. You don't want to make this mistake on an animal of this caliber, of any animal, but especially one that you have put so much time and effort. You don't get many chances at a buck like this, a buck this old. You just don't. At least I don't. And to make such a simple mental error, it still haunts me to this day. So please, please learn from my mistake, from my failure. Hold low, especially on an alert deer. That's my PSA for the video. So I have video of me driving home, talking to the camera. No point in watching that. I just relive the moments, and I'm kicking myself, and it's just depressing. But that next day, I wasn't real confident that it was a lethal hit. And the next day, my brother met me up there, and we spent I got there about an hour before he did, and I traipsed around and looked. Of course, there was no blood. We had rain that night, so there was no blood. I'm basically just walking around looking for a body. I got there an hour before he did. I walked around. I stayed close to where, the area that I thought he had gone, that he was traveling towards. I stayed in that thick stuff. He joined me, and we spent the next few hours, probably the next 3 hours. I think I logged over 6 miles that day, just crisscrossing back and forth through some of the nastiest, thickest, just horrible cover that you can imagine. As I've mentioned earlier, this farm in 2012 was hit by a tornado, and it's pretty thick. So didn't find him, and I pulled cards, and I found this. This is the camera. This is watching the trail that is right next to the tree that I was going to hunt that afternoon on the 28th, but didn't, and ended up going to that blind. And this is minutes after I shot him. He steps out into the logging road and walks into the woods with barely a limp and goes on with the rest of his day. So just to make things more interesting, I decide I'm gonna lay low for a few days. Let things settle down. I've got my cameras running. I'll let them collect intel, and I might skip that next weekend, go hunt somewhere else, let things calm down, and then come back in a couple weeks and see what's going on. So I went back and I pulled the cards, and I see this. This amazes me. Just watch the series of video clips here. So here he comes. This is, as you can see, it's at night. Here he comes running at the camera. And then an hour later, here comes his arch enemy. Here comes his competition. Another big, mature buck. big 11 pointer. Here he comes. And then this happens. So here he is. This is November 9th. It has been 11 days since I put a broadhead in his back, through his scapula and in his back. And he is in a knockdown, drag out fight with another buck. Just tough animal. So after that, we're starting to get through November, and we're getting close to our gun season. And I decide I'm gonna change my MO a little bit, and I just need to kill this deer. So I don't normally bait on this farm, but I decided that I just needed to close the books on this saga of chasing this buck, and I just need to kill him. So I went to go start a bait pile, and took him about 3 days, and he starts showing up. And I had a little screen set up, a catty corner across the field, put me about 115 yards away from the corn. I had my 350 Legend sighted in for dead on at 100 yards, and I'm getting these pictures. Here he is. I'm at school. I'm at school teaching kids about the human body or whatever, and these are the pictures I'm getting while I'm in my classroom. He's just messing with me at this point. So here I am. I'm just waiting on gun season. So I'm out there, gun season. It was in the low 20s, low to mid 20s that morning. And I get out there, I get behind my little screen, and there are deer all over the field. And I got this young buck. He came to the corn, and here he is. I got this video footage. I'll go ahead and play it now. And you can see here he's walking across the field coming to me, and I'm videoing him. I've got my Tacticam set on my rifle scope, and I'm videoing him as he's coming across the field. And so I know if I look through my scope, then I've got him on camera. So I've got the rifle shouldered, and I'm videoing him as he's coming across the field. And the reason I bring this up is this is going to come into play a little later. So that morning goes on pretty uneventful. I saw a bunch of deer, not the deer I'm looking for. And around 10:30, I decide I'm going to go for a walk. So I grab my rifle and I slip down that row, the field edge, where that buck, the field edge I'm in, and I go down to that far corner of the field, and I'm looking around, and there's some old round bales down there, and I'm kind of getting behind them, thinking, okay, if the wind shifts, I could use this as a little hide, and scouting around a little bit. And then I cut across the field, and I walk over, and I went to go over to see how much corn I had left, see if I needed to restock. And then I cut catty corner from the bait site over to my screen. And I got down, sat behind my screen, and of course, I got a message from my lower GI tract telling me that I had some business to take care of. So I grabbed up my roll of paper and I stepped into the fence, the fence row, the tree line there behind the screen, and I take care of business. And I come back, sit down in my chair, and I'm packing all my stuff up. And I hate telling people this part of the story, because if someone were to tell me this, I would probably be polite and go, "Oh, that's crazy, man," right to their face, and then walk away and go, "That dude's lying through his teeth." But I swear this really happened. So it's about 11 o'clock, quarter after 11. I have all of my stuff packed up. And I'm just sitting there, just putting off getting up and walking out. And I look up into that corner that I just came out of where the round bales were, and there he steps out. My cameras are put away. I have nothing to prove that this happened. He steps out, and I thought, I don't believe this. Okay, here we go. I'm going to kill this buck today. And he starts going, basically follows the exact same path I took, and he walked across that field over towards the corn. And as he's getting close, and by this time I've got my earplugs in, so I don't hear this, but in the neighboring property behind me, about 300 yards off, somebody pulls in a diesel pickup. And I can't hear it, but he can. So he perks up. There's a truck behind me, glug, 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 diesel engine running, right? I don't know this. I'm thinking the wind swirled, he caught a whiff of me, something. He smelled where I walked because I was just over there. He knows something's up. So he turns around, he starts going back. So I'm following him through my scope. Here I was thinking I was going to let him get to the corn, let him relax, have a nice stationary shot. No, he's turning around, he's headed back. He gets back almost to the corner, and I'm swinging with him, and he stops broadside. I know he's about 110 to 120 yards, not even going to hold over. All of my bullet drop compensator dots on my crosshairs, they're all on him. Safety's off. I go to squeeze the trigger. Click. Then emotions, thoughts, panic. I thought to myself, I know I chambered around this morning. Did I forget to chamber around? No, I know I did it. So I grab the bolt, I bring it to the rear, I kick out a live round. It lands at my feet. I try to quietly close the bolt, but I realize I'm running out of time. So I slam the bolt home, find my cheek weld, line my scope up just to watch him. He's now turned butt to me, stepping in the woods, and he's running away, gone. I knew no one would believe me, so I took this picture. And I don't know if you can see it because I just took it with my phone, and I was fighting the overwhelmingly powerful urge to just pick it up and throw it as far as I could. But I took this picture. And as you can see, there is this ever so slight little dimple on the primer. So I had a light primer strike. And the only thing, and I talked to many people, including a gunsmith friend of mine, and the only thing we can figure is that when I was videoing that buck and I was breathing, my breath got into the mechanism of that rifle and somehow got in the bolt and froze. My breath hit that cold metal, condensed and froze, and hung my firing pin up just enough to not let it hit the primer, allowing the biggest buck of my life to live another day. So after that fiasco, I got home, and wondering if my rifle might be broken or if that round could have been a dud, even though I was fairly certain that that light primer strike was the issue, that the round was fine. I got home here and laid the rifle down on the bench and squeezed the trigger, but made sure that round was seated in the top of the same magazine that I had in the rifle and chambered that round and pulled the trigger, and of course it went pow. And just for good measure, I chambered in a second, and it went pow too. So turns out ammunition was okay, rifle was fine. I just apparently had frost on that firing pin. So that's not the end of the story. I was back out on Christmas break. Now I have some time. I'm not so much a weekend warrior, and I went out on, I believe it was December 20th, and I was talking to a friend of mine who will remain nameless. Um, and he said, "What you got to do to kill that deer, man?" He said, "You got to switch things up." He said, "Go into your spot in a different path. Go in a different route." And so instead of taking my normal path, which would have been to cut through the middle of the farm and get to this logging road and just cross the logging road and drop into my spot on the ground, I came up on the far side, what would be the western side, and I came down the logging road instead of cutting through the middle of the farm. I came down the logging road a good 100 yards, maybe 150 yards, and then tucked into my spot. And about 8 o'clock or so, good shooting light. I can hear footsteps coming through the brush on my side of the field, on my side of the logging road, and all I could see through all the honeysuckle and autumn olive and cedar trees were just legs. And I could tell by the way he was walking that it was probably a buck. And he stepped out into the logging road west, on the west end of the logging road, about 25 yards just up from my shooting lane. And to make a long story short, it took him almost 10 minutes to get even close to being in my shooting lane. At first, I wasn't sure it was him. And then I caught he was smelling where I had walked, and he turned left, which is what I needed him to do, and came down that logging road. And then I got a better look, and I knew it was either him or it was that big 11 pointer that he got in the fight with. Either way, at this point, I'm shooting either one of those deer. And then he got about halfway to where my shooting lane was, but it's taken him forever. I mean, he's taken a step and he's sniffing and he's looking and he's sniffing, and he is just taking forever. And it was probably 10 minutes. And now he is just a step or two away from being into the shooting lane. And, I had my ghillie hood on, it was down on my chair, and I've got the bunch of autumn olive in front of me. And as we can see in the video right here, I came to full draw, and when I got anchored in, he stopped and looked at me, and I was just in the peep, just waiting for him to come into the shooting lane. And all I did was come up and look away from the peep, and then that was it. And I guess he caught that movement. He probably caught me drawing. You're down on the ground, man. It can be tough. And then he took off. Now, I don't know clearly coming down that logging road that morning was a mistake. I don't know if he'd have come down that logging road if I'd come up through the middle of the farm and just crossed the road and dropped into my spot. Was he intending on going left, or was he just going to cross the road? I don't know. But I do know that coming down that logging road from the western end of the farm and coming down, that was not a good idea. So, like I said, the person that suggested I do that, an accomplished whitetail hunter in himself, he did tell me to change it up. He didn't tell me exactly how to change it up, but he's changed it up. And so that, I believe, me choosing that alternate route ultimately was what allowed that buck to get by me, which would be now for the fourth time in his life. That was the same spot I was in when I almost got a shot on him in the 21-22 season. So um, I don't know. Maybe he always looks over there since he caught me over there a few years prior. I don't know. But anyway, that was strike three for the 23-24 season. Uh, and then just to make I know we're going on and this is a long story, but we got through muzzleloader. I didn't see him. He was still around. And then I went out. Season came to a close. I went out and found his shed, one of his sheds. I got pictures of him in the first, I think it was the 1st of February, and he had lost an antler. And then I went out a few weeks later and I found the antler that he was carrying. When I got his picture, I never found that other side. Um, and then I got ready for the next season, which would have been this past season, 24-25. So I get my normal MO. I've got my camera over that mineral stump, and I'm getting pictures of him in velvet, and he looks like he's going to be as big as ever. He seems to be recovering quite well from the wound I gave him in October of 23. And again, I see that little cut in his left ear. I know it's him. And then he was there all year. He never left. And then to wrap things up, I had one close encounter with him during 23-24. It was in early November, right around again that Halloween weekend, right there around Halloween, that first of November. And I was in my saddle, and he came in from my right, and I thought he was going to come up and pass me on my right and come down the trail that has this scrape, and I'll put pictures of him in that scrape. And that would have been a 12-yard shot from that tree. But, as he always seemed to do, he, instead of coming up where I thought he was going to come, he crossed behind me. I turned around and I saw him at 35, but there was some vegetation in the way, and I didn't even draw the bow. I let him walk, didn't even try the shot, and he slipped on by me. And where he was going, I'm sure he got downwind, and so I didn't even bother trying to call to him or rattle or grunt to him or anything like that. I just let him go, and I pulled cards. I go another week, and I pull cards, and on November 7th, he was all over that property. I'll go ahead and flash some pictures of various cameras on the 7th that he walked in front of. And then the last few pictures I got of him were on the evening of November 7th. And then he up and disappeared. And I still was after him, and I was still looking for him all season. And I thought, well, gun season rolled around. I still don't have any pictures of him. I moved my cameras. I added cameras out there. I think at one point I had 9 cameras on this property. And he gone. And we got through gun. I did the same thing. I thought, okay, I'm gonna try the corn pile trick again, see if I can just get pictures of him just to make sure he's still around. And no pictures. We go through muzzleloader, no pictures. I pass on smaller bucks, and I'm still holding out hope. And then we got through January and nothing. And I finally got to the point where okay, he's gone. He either relocated, he got tired of me trying to kill him, and he just said, I'm out of here, or he met his match somewhere. And I went out on February, and I'm pulling cameras, and I'm doing some shed hunting after our season had closed. And I walked down this fence row, and I found a little shed, a little 4-point shed, picked it up, took a picture, and I think I took 5 steps, and I saw him. There he was.
Well, I think I know why my number one quit showing up. I haven't walked over there yet, but I'm pretty sure it's him. He's right over there. Wow. I just wonder, did he finally succumb to the wound I gave him, or I don't know, but let's walk over there and find out. But either way, it is a big buck laying over there. Let me turn this around. Man, I see his ribs and everything. That's gotta be him. That's him. That is definitely him. Man, he's still got tissue on him. Oh my gosh. Sorry, old warrior. Man. I mean, on one hand, I'm gonna be able to put my hands on him finally, but on the other hand, I part of me feels, I don't know, man. I can't believe I'm this broken up about a buck. I really, wow. All right, well, I'm gonna get some pictures and I guess get him on out of here and call the game warden and see if I can get a recovery tag.
All right, well, that's where the story of K1 came to an end. I'm not exactly sure when he met his demise. Clearly, he's been there a while. And like I said, the last pictures I got of him were on November 7th. And you can see in this picture, this is my favorite picture of him. He is standing in the scrape that I shot him in a little over a year prior to this picture. And he looks healthy to me. I mean, he's big old barrel chested, just, man, what a stud. And he was all over. And I think the last one, he was headed towards the saddle at 8:30, 8:38, something like that at night. And those were the last pictures I got of him. And I went through probably conservatively over 5,000 pictures taken on that farm, and he was not in any of them since November 7th. So apparently something, I don't know if the broadhead eventually got him, or he finally succumbed to that wound, or something else. Maybe he just died of old age. I don't know. But hopefully he was able that night. He was able to spend some quality time with one of his girlfriends, and then he just kind of went into his bedding area, and that was it. So I've got some footage here. I grabbed his scapula that had the broadhead and the arrow go through, and you can see. I took some video of it here. I'll put it over while I'm talking. You can see the swollen section that went through the scapular spine. So that broadhead went through, at least one blade of the broadhead went through that scapular spine. That is the ridge, the thin ridge that runs along the axis of the bone. And then if you can clearly see the hole, and if you look real close, there's a piece of the broadhead still stuck in his scapula. So he is clearly, this is the deer that I shot in October of 2023. So that's his story. I did call the game warden, and I got a recovery tag, whatever you want to call it, a deadhead, a pickup, and here he is. And I'm not long arming him. And he is up against my chest right there. So it's been a few days working on getting him cleaned up, but there he is, man. I'm looking at the screen. I can barely get him to fit in that viewfinder. So, yeah, that's him. So let's do a contest. Here's what we'll do. What do you think he'll score? I'm going to put a tape on him probably this evening after I get finished with this video. And I'm going to find a score and comment below. What do you think? What do you think he'll go? What do you think he'll score? I got my ideas. I haven't done it yet, but I got my ideas, and just maybe whoever gets the closest number, maybe we'll do a little giveaway. I've got some Grips Archery hats up for grabs. Your choice. You can have the green or the orange. Whoever gets the closest score. So I'll give it a few weeks before I post the score and pick our winner. So share this video with a friend you think they might want a Grips Archery hat. Let them see the story of K1. All right, guys, so that'll about do it for this video. As always, I appreciate the views, and if you'd like, if you've made it this far, you may as well click subscribe. I mean, come on, you got this much time in it. So, as always, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll talk to you guys later.